My name is Tolu Ajayi, and I'm a film director, an all-round creative professional. The director is someone that has an interesting point of view, has stories to tell, has the technical knowledge and wherewithal, presents that story, get a crew of people who know how to tell that story, get actors that want to be in that story, and he tells them how he sees the story, and everybody conforms to the vision that that person has, and that story is told over, a period of time. It's recorded on cameras, and the director is able, with his skill set or with the knowledge of people who can help him achieve that, to put that story together and screen it. It starts with a vision, I believe. It starts with a point of view, it starts with a story to tell. Putting all those elements together, staging, presentation, and everything else wise, getting it recorded and having it edited and finished. Yeah, I believe when you're done with that exercise, in whatever duration, you can give yourself that appellation. I'm going to break it down into three. I'm sure there are more, but I'm just going to say three. So I think the three core things the director needs to have. The first is you have to learn to see. Learning to see is being the ability to see visually, to visually interpret what's ahead of you, or to translate text into something that's going to be a visual story. You also must be able to see possibilities when people don't see it. You must be able to look at something that's going to be a set or script that's likely to be a story. You have to have vision, essentially. So learning to see is super critical. As a director, learning to see possibilities, see character objectives, see all these things that are just in normal plain text. The second thing is learning to read. Learning to read again, it has to do with text, script interpretation, knowing what to read for, knowing how to translate character into, or translate the movement of actors and make it into something that's meaningful. Learning to look out for things in story, metaphors, learning to see things like juxtaposition, literary terms, as well as a lot of other things. So a director must know how to read, must know how to see. And the last thing is you must learn to be. Learning to be is what I call the part of you being a leader on set. Being someone that knows how to execute things, being someone that can solve problems, someone that can lead people to a place they've not been to before. Sometimes your actors, get them to take risks. So there's all that in three core things, and that's one of the things where I get the opportunity to talk to students about. And teaching people to see how to have their own personal vision is super critical in being a director. Then translating scripts so that it becomes a story, making our story, breaking it down into scenes, and all the other wonderful things that come from interpreting a script. Then the actual being a force on set that's able to determine the direction the production goes in is, it's the last thing. And I hope, yeah. The analogy I have is I have to use sports. So the analogy that's in my mind right now, it's like a difference between running a marathon and running a sprint. You're good to how to prepare for both. You're good to go do exercises, get ready, talk to your coaches, get all the things ready. But the burst of energy you need for a commercial to finish, which is likely to be some days, well, you could do prep for a month, depending on how extensive it is. But ultimately, you're not going to shoot for very long for a commercial. You still require the same amount of brain power. You need to go recce locations. You're going to need a very interesting crew. The execution period isn't for very long. So it's really more of a sprint, having to do a lot of things quickly at once. then you're done. For a film, and of course there's post-production, which for commercials, in my experience, hasn't lasted more than intensively a month, and that's even with delays. With film, it's a marathon. You're going to be with your crew for way longer. You're going to be working on a film. You could be making a treatment for a year for a film, sometimes more. It could be the amount of time you have to do table reads, you have to do all the prep of all the locations, checking, getting feedback, back and forth on one or two things. Rehearsals with the actors, table reads, so extensively longer. So the energy you're going to need to finish a film, it's way more. There's stuff you have to look at, which is way more. Time you're spending in post, way more. It could be a year, it could be less than that in post. So I feel that you'll have to exercise both of them very differently. The way I believe you train, but you will have to train very differently. The kind of cardio and exercise you do for a film is different from the kind of exercise you do for a commercial. I feel these are the differences in a long-winded way. Try to get a lot of sleep, because you're not going to use the same tips and tricks on everything. So the more important thing is, how do you take care of yourself before you go into a project? Because the way the intensity of the projects go, you're likely to be, it turns out differently for your health, even mentally. So it will make sense to have a sense of a mental pace and mental rhythm that you maintain, and get rest, because once you get into the process, it's going to be very, very intense. Be kind to people on set. It helps. It helps to be kind to people on set. Be very prepared. I'm currently telling the people I'm working with currently, like, everybody needs to have a folder that have all your information in one place, so you can cross-reference it, and if you forget anything, you're always prepared. So that's sort of a tip and trick for basically everyone that's directing. Have all your notes in one place. Bring it on set if necessary. Have a digital copy if necessary, so you can always make sure you don't forget or miss anything that's going to harm you later in post. Bring snacks for everybody on set, so people are energized. When you're making a film, it's collaborative, so being able to have something to invest in other people so that they don't trip you up, or they'll collaborate very effectively with you, I think is a trick every director should have, because you're not making a film by yourself. My advice to young directors is, as much as possible, because filmmaking is becoming easier. It's still stressful, but it's becoming easier, and there's so many things that I film now that didn't exist before. However, I feel that they should do their best to know what the past is. Not in a sense of, oh, the past was better, but there's so much to gain from the stuff and ways of, there's so many tips and tricks that come from the ways of how things used to be done that are sort of taken for granted now. Because as fast as it's easier to make films, there's so many secrets hidden in some of the things that were in the past. That would be a trick. Learn to look back and when to look back.